What's up, gamers? I hope everybody's having a wonderful day today. So recently the Xbox Developer Direct happened, and by far the biggest highlight from that showcase, at least for me, was Doom: The Dark Ages. It looks absolutely fantastic. But wherever there's Doom, there is also salt. And that is definitely the case with the video we're going to be taking a look at today, which is titled Doom: The Dark Ages. Okay, now I'm worried. And comes from a YouTuber by the name of Trump Card Media Reviews, where he expresses that he's worried over Doom: The Dark Ages for a myriad of reasons. And admittedly, I do think he has a few valid points here and there, and I will try to point out when I do think he has a good point, but most of these are pretty fucking stupid, so we're gonna go ahead and get right into this. I am gonna skip past like the first minute or so, because it is pretty irrelevant.
But I really liked the Doom trailer a lot. You can go and watch my response at the time if you want. I got annoyed at the YouTuber Darkside Phil for being a tool about it. He concluded that this new game would be terrible purely on the basis that the setting was a bit medieval. So I sat down to watch an over 10-minute video from the developers id that just came out about this new game, and it's left me with some real concerns. I like this a lot less than that original trailer. I say this because a lot of the reviews that they did about this new game, Doom: The Dark Ages, look like they may be the exact opposite of what I wanted. It's a mix of some things I like the sound of, others that I don't, and some things that could be okay or could be terrible, depending on how they're implemented. That and the release of the PC specs that will be needed to run this thing, and I may just give it a miss altogether. Because this game to me doesn't look as good as Doom 2016 does.
You're gonna need to be a bit more specific on how Doom 2016 supposedly looks better, because I could not disagree more. Doom: The Dark Ages visually looks way more impressive than Doom 2016. Like, I'm gonna put some gameplay of somebody playing Doom 2016 on PC at max settings, and then I'm gonna put some gameplay that was shown of Doom: The Dark Ages during the Xbox Developer Direct, and it is a night and day difference. Like, if you showed a comparison to show what you're talking about, that would really help a lot, because from what I've seen, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Yet requires an Nvidia 3080 or better to run on recommended specs, and requires 4 times the RAM Doom 2016 did. Doom 2016 was really well optimised. This doesn't seem to be at all. So I won't be pre-ordering this one, and I'll be waiting for reviews because I have serious concerns at this point.
So this is one of the points he brings up that I actually think has some merit to it. My main concern is the fact that the GPU capable of hardware-based ray tracing is mandatory for this game, and I really do not agree with that decision, considering that Doom is an arena shooter, and most people are far more concerned with getting a high frame rate rather than using all the fancy new graphics tech. Having said that, I do still believe Doom: The Dark Ages will be well optimized within this constraint, considering that they have a really damn good track record of having well optimized games. In fact, even the minimum requirements, which list a 2060 Super and 16GB of RAM, is enough to get 60 FPS at native 1080p, assuming you're playing at low settings, of course, but even then, that's still better than what a lot of recommended system requirements can deliver at other games.
I'm going to be breaking their video down while I play Doom 2016 on Nightmare difficulty. I'm not going Ultra Nightmare, because if you get dropped once on that, it's game over, and the last twice I tried doing it, the first time the game crashed at the end of level 5, the game frequently crashes right at the end of level 5 when you get pulled into a hell portal in the game, and then maybe half the time the game crashes. And then I have to restart, and then the next time I try it, Doom Guy clipped through a floor on level 2 and plummeted clear off the map. Granted, the environments in this new game are looking really nice, but they're not looking 4 times the system requirements required to run it nice.
Well, something you have to keep in mind is that it's not just graphics that go into the performance of a game, but it's also the gameplay features. And the levels in Doom: The Dark Ages are not only much bigger than in Doom 2016 and Eternal, but they also have a lot more enemies. We see entire battalions of demons in several of the clips that were shown during the Developer Direct, and each one of them requires memory and CPU time, which is probably why this game has such a high memory and CPU requirement. Not to mention, this game is also being built with the current gen consoles in mind, as opposed to 2016 and Eternal, which were built for the previous gen consoles, so id Software is probably going to want to utilize all that extra new power, and that's going to propagate into the PC space as well.
I'm liking the new enemy designs and the new design for the Doomslayer, but I care a lot more about gameplay than I do ray tracing. Maybe the most worrying thing for me was the reveal of difficulty sliders, because that tends to mean to me a diminished and less polished gameplay experience.
Oh boy, here we fucking go.
Because Doom 2016 had really only 4 difficulty settings. Ultra Nightmare was just Nightmare and Iron Man mode really, so no saves. The devs had to optimise 4 difficulties for that game, and the game was polished but still had bugs.
The fuck does difficulty have to do with optimization or bugs? If you look at the bugs that were in Doom 2016, including the one where you crash at the end of the Argent Tower mission, that is completely independent of whatever difficulty you're playing on. Adding difficulty sliders is not going to greatly increase the amount of bug fixing they have to do, because all the fucking sliders are just different numerical values tied to certain attributes. Literally all you need is just a variable for each slider, store it depending on whatever the user selects, and then plug that value in for whatever calculations the game has to do under the hood for the gameplay. And for fuck's sake, dude, optimization? Pretty much the only thing that you could argue might need specific optimization is the game speed slider. Because, you know, obviously if the game speed is faster, then that means the CPU has to do more work in a shorter period of time to facilitate that, but the rest of them, you're literally just changing numbers that correspond to things like enemy damage, projectile speed, and other things. Like, you're literally just putting different numbers into whatever math the game is doing to make it work, and the computational complexity remains the fucking same.
This game looks like it's going to have to optimise hundreds of possible difficulties. There are 8 sliders allowing for things like customised player damage, enemy damage, the speed of enemy projectiles, and the total game speed. If each slider has, by the look of it, maybe 10 positions, that's something like 8 to the power of 10 possible settings, and they couldn't even manage a flawless game when they were trying with 4.
As I have just explained, the overwhelming majority of optimization work is going to apply to every difficulty setting, and if you're talking about the balancing, id Software is still making 4 curated difficulty options that they are carefully balancing to provide an intended experience. The sliders are simply there if you want to tweak it further. They're not going to balance it around every combination of settings, that's just simply not possible with the amount that are there, but if you want a curated experience, just pick one of the 4 difficulties and stick with that.
It looks like this game's lower difficulty will be essentially games journalist mode.
Well, no fucking shit!
What? You mean the lowest difficulty is going to be very easy? In other news, grass is green, water is wet, and the sky is blue.
For me, who really liked Doom 2016, this game looks glacially slow. It's like a snail on downers. It even still looks slow on the highest possible speed settings. Just look at the speed of these enemy ranged attacks. That's ridiculous. I could be half asleep and sedated and still dodge that.
Now try dodging them when there's a metric fuckton of enemies all slinging projectiles your way all at once. I guarantee that it's going to be a lot harder. In fact, I want y'all to remember this clip because it is going to be relevant again later. Also, he says that the game is glacially slow even on the highest speed setting, when for one, this clip doesn't even show off the highest speed setting, so I find this kinda disingenuous. There's a short clip later on where they do show the game speed at its highest slider setting, and it looks to be about as fast as Doom 2016. Second of all, they made it very clear that Doom the Dark Ages is intentionally going for a slower paced experience, as they said that if in Doom Eternal you are a fighter jet, in Doom the Dark Ages you are a tank. Third, this is a trailer. It's not an accurate representation of what the moment-to-moment gameplay is going to look like. Rather, it's designed to sell people on the game, and for that, they're going to play on a lower difficulty and at a slower pace so they can show off all the environments and get all those money shots of the cool features that the game is going to have. Hell, if you look at the trailer for Doom Eternal and then look at some actual gameplay of Doom Eternal, you'll find that the way the gameplay was shown in that trailer looks nothing like the moment-to-moment gameplay in Eternal.
This is shocking, and I can only guess this is meant for the likes of games journalist Dean Takahashi, who tried to play the game Cuphead and famously couldn't get through the game's tutorial. He also had trouble with the basic game mechanics in Doom Eternal, so how can journalists give a workable review of a game if they can't even get through the tutorial?
That's why multiple difficulty options exist, and they have always existed since the original Doom back in 1993. If you want a challenge, play on Ultraviolence or Nightmare. If you want an easy experience, play on I'm Too Young to Die or Hey Not Too Rough. If you want something in between, play on Hurt Me Plenty. Plus, you can also use the difficulty sliders to make the game harder or easier to your liking. You know, the ones you were bitching about earlier. This is a single-player game, and you can play it however you want to, and everyone else can play how they want to. Doom has always catered to players of all skill levels, and that has not changed in Doom the Dark Ages.
There are a worrying number of signs that the focus in Doom the Dark Ages will not be on the gameplay, including the giant mech fights and the dragon. As cool as they are, they're just more signals that the focus in this game is in entirely the wrong place.
Literally fucking how? The mech and dragon portions aren't just cutscenes like they were in Doom Eternal Tag 2, they are actual playable sections, and id Software even confirmed that there would be multiple of these sections throughout the game, so they should be at least somewhat fleshed out. But no guys, apparently Doom the Dark Ages is focusing too much on story because they're looking to add more gameplay variety. Yeah, great fucking logic there, dude.
In their video, id describe Doom the Dark Ages like this.
In Doom Eternal, you felt like a fighter jet. In Doom the Dark Ages, you'll be an iron tank.
I'm interested in them bringing strafing back into the game as a viable tactic, instead of the run and gun from Doom 2016. In some ways, that's going right back to before Doom 2016, and way back to the original Doom 1 and 2. And lots of elements of this game seem to be like that.
So he admits that this game is going back to the roots of the classic Doom games, but wait, wasn't he bitching earlier about the speed of this game?
Just look at the speed of these enemy ranged attacks. That's ridiculous. I could be half asleep and sedated and still dodge that.
So if he admits that it's going back to Doom's roots, then why was he bitching about it earlier? Anyone that's played classic Doom knows that enemy projectiles are slower than in 2016 and Eternal, and there was a lot of challenge in dodging a bullet hell of enemy projectiles. If it's going back to those roots, then where's the problem?
What is the problem?
They seem to have gone away from the tuned challenge arenas of Doom 2016 and into more open world sandbox, and I'm not keen on that.
What is it with people claiming that Doom the Dark Ages is going to be open world? id Software said that the levels are going to be more expansive with larger arenas with more enemies as well as more secrets to find, but that doesn't mean open world.
There also seems to be a big emphasis put on secrets and exploration, which is also very Doom 1 and 2. One problem with the idea of strafing may be what they've done to the enemy AI in order to make that work, because the enemies don't seem to be flanking like they did in Doom 2016. Their tactics seem extremely rudimentary in comparison in these gameplay videos, and it looks like the game relies on hordes of less intelligent enemies instead of having a fewer challenging ones.
Like I stated earlier, this is a gameplay trailer, and they're playing on a lower difficulty so they can more easily show off the gameplay features and environments. In fact, when they were showing off the sliders, it said they were on Hurt Me Plenty. Besides, it's not like having a lot more enemies that are somewhat less intelligent is a bad thing. It can be very fun if done well. Case in point, the classic Doom game. So, once again, where's the problem?
What is the problem?
Doom the Dark Ages is coming out supposedly May the 15th of 2025, and that I do like. I kind of prefer smaller gaps in between sequels than we've been getting. It's now 5 years since Doom Eternal, and I'd like smaller gaps even than that, even if it means reusing assets. There's no need to completely reinvent the wheel every single time, but frankly I don't want to be too harsh on it on this occasion, considering the minimum 15-year wait for a Fallout sequel.
Yeah, this dude just goes off on an irrelevant tangent about how Fallout and Elder Scrolls have had an absurdly long gap between releases, which is all fine and dandy, but my question is, what the fuck does this have to do with Doom? Sure, they're both published by Bethesda, but they have completely separate development studios, so we're speeding past this so we can stay on topic.
I'm also still not happy about Doom the Dark Ages being a prequel, because I've really started to find prequels boring. We get so many of them. I maybe would have preferred them to move the story forward, but after Doom the Ancient Gods, I'm not sure where they can even go.
That's probably why they're making it a fucking prequel then. Also, does anybody actually give a shit about the story in the Doom games? I did watch all the cutscenes during my first playthrough of Doom Eternal, but frankly, I really don't think you're missing anything by skipping the cutscenes. Most people just want to rip and tear their way through the hordes of Satan's minions.
Where'd you go with a game after you've blown up Satan? But Doom the Dark Ages looked like Doom, but with a medieval sort of aesthetic, and I was hoping it was going to be more like Doom 2016 than it was Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal in many places felt far too arcadey for me, and I preferred the darker, more gothic horror tone of Doom 2016 to the eye-melting, gaudy neon palette of Doom Eternal. That and flying around almost constantly on monkey bars. It sounds like they got the message on the monkey bars, but they didn't on the neon palette, because looking at this footage, there were just neon markers and tat covering almost the entire screen now.
Because God forbid we have proper visual indicators for important gameplay-related information in a game as arcadey as Doom. Besides, it's not like Doom 2016 didn't have this shit as well. Case in point, the fucking enemies glowing bright orange when they're in their stagger state and turning blue when you're close enough to glory kill them. And no, it is not the entire fucking screen like this dude wants to claim. It's only highlighting a few specific gameplay elements that are relevant at that moment in time. Like in the footage that he shows, it's only for attacks that are within parry range.
I quite like your art design, Id. It would have been nice if I could maybe, see some of it instead of just seeing neon everywhere.
Then use your fucking eyes then. It's not like literally everything on screen is bright neon indicators. You can very clearly see the art direction in Doom the Dark Ages. Well, unless your name is Blindbeard the Pirate.
I'm Blindbeard the Pirate!
Part of this seems to be due to a new system they've come up with of contextual button presses. So the Doomslayer has a shield in this game. The shield is also a chainsaw, and it's one button to operate the shield as a block, the same button to operate it as a parry, and the same button to throw the shield like Captain America. And that's why the screen is filled with this neon crud, to tell you what will happen when you press that contextual button, and that could be an absolute nightmare. If in the middle of a battle you're trying to block and instead Doomguy throws the shield because you didn't see a neon marker somewhere in a field of neon markers.
If the neon markers are really as intrusive as you claim, then that's kind of on you for not fucking noticing them. Having said that though, I do think that bringing up how multiple actions are tied to a single button is a valid concern, because one of the issues I had in Doom Eternal was that sometimes I would try to go in for a glory kill, but end up using the blood punch instead due to them being bound to the same key. Hopefully id Software can make it work, but still, I do think that's a good point on his end.
Doom 2016 also got a lot of praise for the way it told the story, or maybe more exactly, the way it didn't tell the story, because instead of cutscenes, like pretty much every other game does, Doom 2016 put the story into text files that you could read if you wanted to. But frankly, Doomguy in the game wasn't much interested in the story. He was mostly interested in ripping and tearing demons. So what have they done this time? Well, they've taken the narrative out of the codex and put it into cutscenes. So in this update from the studio, I found out that Doom the Dark Ages is going to be innovating by telling story through cutscenes, pretty much like everything else does, and discarding the very original idea that people had praised them for.
Don't get me wrong, the Codex is cool and all, but it's not a unique idea. Metroid Prime, a game from 2002, had the same system, and I'm pretty sure several RPGs and ImSims also had it as well. Besides, it's not like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal didn't have cutscenes either. In fact, the main stories of those games were told through cutscenes and dialogue as well. The Codex was simply there to give you more background information for those who care. Also, if the cutscenes bother you, I guarantee you'll be able to skip them, which, funnily enough, Doom 2016, the game that you keep praising, has unskippable cutscenes. The one that comes to mind for me is the one where after you return from hell the first time, you meet Samuel Hayden in his office and talk with him in a segment that you cannot skip.
Their video also says there are going to be both new and returning characters and new enemies, and I have mixed feelings about those as well. The original Doom in 1993 was never really about characters, was it? The games didn't really have dialogue in them. But it could be a good thing for the Doomslayer to have some new enemies, because after Doom the Ancient Gods, is there anyone even left alive? He maybe needs a nemesis or two, maybe an enemy he really has to dig deep to beat instead of just already having everything he needs to win with him every single time.
Did you not play Doom Eternal? Well, to be fair, it's entirely possible you skipped all the cutscenes, but in that game, the entire story was a damn fetch quest so you could kill the big bads that you were after. Also, I really don't see what the ending of Tag 2 has to do with this, seeing as Doom the Dark Ages is a prequel to Doom 2016.
Doom maybe has some story problems when compared to, say, Batman, because Batman has this huge rogues gallery, and the stories in some ways write themselves. They have decades of established characters to work with, like the Joker or Bane. The problem with the Doomslayer is, well, he slays everyone. He's kind of run out of bad guys because he blew them all up. So now they're having to do prequels set in a time before he blew everyone up. If Doomguy was in Gotham, he'd just BFG the Joker in the face, and then there's no more Joker to write stories with.
Bro, why the fuck are we comparing Doom to Batman? Like, why are we using hypothetical scenarios of Doomguy and Gotham killing Batman villains as an argument? Like, please, make this make sense. Doom and Batman are two very different franchises. Of course, the way they go about their story is gonna be fucking different. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and end the video here, because the only other thing he talks about after this is the situation with Mick Gordon, which, don't get me wrong, it's definitely worthy of calling out the leadership at id Software that were responsible for that. But all I really have to say on that is Mick Gordon stated that he doesn't want people to boycott the game over this, since he doesn't think that the hundreds of people who worked on the game that had nothing to do with it should have their work go to waste. But outside of that, it's your money, do whatever the fuck you want with it. But anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. So I guess the key takeaway here is that, I don't fucking know, Doom bad because it's not Batman, I guess. But anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more. And if you didn't like it, hit the dislike button and leave an angry comment. Also, tell me what you think of this dude's take on Doom the Dark Ages. Anyways, that's it. Peace!